Before the war between vampires and werewolves ever began, there was a slave, a servant, a creature bred in chains for one single purpose, to fight and die for the very people who despised him. He fell in love with a woman he could never have. He built an army out of nothing but rage and iron. And when the chains finally broke, he didn't just start a war, he became a legend that every underworld film after this one is still living in the shadow of. This is the origin story that came before Celine, before Michael Corvin, before any of it. This is how the Lycans rose. This is Underworld, Rise of the Lycans. Centuries before the events of the original Underworld film, the world belongs to the vampires. Specifically, it belongs to one vampire, Victor, the eldest and most powerful of the three vampire lords, ruling from a fortress-like estate with cold, absolute authority. Victor's slaves aren't vampires. They're Lycans, a race of werewolves bred and enslaved generations ago after Victor tamed the first of their kind. Stripped of their ability to freely shift into wolves, these Lycans exist purely to serve, forced into servant roles by day and used as expendable soldiers against rival vampire covens by night. Among them is Lucian. Unlike the other Lycans, Lucian is different. He was born, not bitten, making him what's called a pure-blood Lycan, a rarity Victor keeps close for reasons of his own. Lucian has spent his entire life in captivity, watching his people beaten, chained, and killed for vampire amusement. But there's something Victor doesn't fully account for. Lucian is intelligent, patient, and quietly furious. We're introduced to Victor's daughter, Sonia, the vampire heir, elegant and fierce, next in line to eventually take her father's place among the ruling elders. Sonia isn't like the other vampires in Victor's court. She's shown moments of genuine compassion toward the Lycans, moments Lucian has clearly noticed. And in the shadows between duty and rebellion, something has already begun growing between them, a secret, forbidden relationship between the vampire heir and the slave leader of the Lycans. If discovered, it would be considered an unforgivable betrayal of everything Victor's rule stands for. Meanwhile, war looms on the horizon. Victor's longtime rival, a vampire lord named Craven, yes, that Craven, is scheming for status within the coven, while Victor prepares to strengthen his forces using his Lycan slaves as frontline soldiers in an escalating war against a resurgent army of ordinary, wild werewolves who threaten the vampire's territory. Victor sends his Lycan slaves, led by Lucian, into battle against the wild werewolf packs. In one brutal skirmish, we see just how effective and how disposable Lucian's people are considered. They fight fiercely, they bleed, and vampires like Victor's second-in-command, Tanis, treat their sacrifice as routine. After the battle, Lucian discovers a wounded Lycan comrade left to die and defies orders to save him instead of leaving him behind. It's a small act, but it reveals exactly who Lucian is, someone who values his people's lives even when the vampires who rule them don't. Back at the estate, Sonia tends to Lucian in secret, and their relationship deepens further. There's real tenderness here, two people from worlds designed to despise each other, choosing one another anyway. But every stolen moment is a risk. If Victor's court discovers a vampire and a Lycan have been intimate, the punishment for both of them would be severe. Vampire law considers such a union a violation on the level of treason. Meanwhile, Lucian begins quietly organizing. He's not just a slave anymore, he's a leader planning something larger. Using his position as blacksmith, a trade Victor allows him because of his skill, Lucian starts forging silver-resistant weapons and, more importantly, sowing the seeds of rebellion among the other enslaved Lycans. He's careful, patient. He knows one wrong move gets every Lycan in the estate slaughtered. Tension escalates when Craven, sniffing out weakness and opportunity, begins circling Sonia, pushing for a political marriage that would cement his own power within the coven. Sonia wants nothing to do with him, but Craven's ambitions make him dangerous, and increasingly suspicious of what Sonia might be hiding. The wild werewolf packs launch a major assault, and in the chaos, Lucian and his Lycan soldiers are pushed to their absolute limit. During the battle, everything changes. Lucian is bitten and wounded, but instead of dying, something happens that shouldn't be possible for a pureblood like him. He actually transforms fully into a werewolf, unleashing a strength the vampires never anticipated. This transformation terrifies and fascinates Victor in equal measure. It's proof that the Lycans are far more dangerous than he's allowed himself to believe, and proof that his control over them is more fragile than he thinks. Sonia, watching from the sidelines, sees Lucian in his true, savage power for the first time, and instead of fear, she feels something closer to awe. Their bond deepens even further, right as the danger around them multiplies. Then, disaster. Sonya discovers she's pregnant with Lucian's child, a union of vampire and Lycan blood that, by the ancient laws of Victor's coven, is considered an abomination. Before she can find a way to protect the secret, or protect Lucian, the truth comes out. Tanis, ever loyal to Victor and ever suspicious, uncovers the relationship and immediately reports it. Victor is enraged, not just because his daughter has broken vampire law, but because she chose Lucian, a Lycan slave, a being he considers beneath his own household staff. In Victor's mind, this isn't love. It's the ultimate betrayal, from the one person he trusted most. Sonya and Lucian are captured. What follows is one of the most devastating sequences in the entire Underworld franchise. Victor, as both father and supreme judge of vampire law, is forced, or rather, chooses, to preside over his own daughter's trial. Craven, seeing an opportunity to prove his loyalty and eliminate a woman who rejected him, pushes for the harshest possible punishment. Lucian is dragged before Victor and whipped mercilessly in front of the entire vampire court, a public humiliation meant to break the Lycan's spirit as much as punish him personally. Sonya is forced to watch. It's brutal, and it's meant to be. Victor wants every Lycan present to understand exactly what happens to those who defy the vampire hierarchy. But the true horror is still coming. Sonya, refusing to renounce Lucian or beg for mercy, is sentenced to death for violating vampire law, and Victor, bound by the very traditions he's enforced for centuries, allows it. In one of the coldest, most gutting moments in the franchise, Sonya is executed by exposure to sunlight while chained, her own father unable or unwilling to stop it. Lucian, chained and forced to watch, is left utterly broken. The woman he loved, the mother of his unborn child, is gone, killed by the very system that enslaved his entire race. Any restraint Lucian had left dies with her. Grief becomes fuel. Lucian escapes his chains, and this time, he doesn't stop at freedom for himself. He returns to free the other enslaved Lycans, revealing the weapons and plans he's been quietly preparing for years. What Victor once dismissed as a controlled, obedient slave population turns out to have been a rebellion waiting for its spark. The Lycans rise up. What follows is an explosive, brutal uprising across Victor's estate, Lycans turning on their vampire masters, weapons Lucian forged now being used against the very coven that built them. It's chaos, and it's payback centuries in the making. Lucian confronts Victor directly, and the fight between them is personal in every sense, slave against master, grieving lover against the father who ordered her death. Lucian doesn't just want freedom anymore. He wants Victor to understand exactly what he's lost, the same way Lucian has lost everything. In the end, Lucian doesn't kill Victor outright. Instead, he leaves him alive but broken, stripped of the absolute control he once held over the Lycans, forced to watch as his slaves become a free, organized force with nothing left to lose. Victor, in a desperate final move, has himself placed into hibernation, unwilling to face a world where his Lycans are no longer under his control. Lucian leads the Lycans into the night as free beings for the first time in generations, but freedom has come at the ultimate cost, and the war between vampires and Lycans that will echo through the entire Underworld saga has officially begun. And that's the tragedy at the center of it all, the entire vampire-Lycan war, the one that Selene gets pulled into centuries later, didn't start over territory or power. It started because one father chose tradition over his own daughter, and turned the man who loved her into the very monster he always claimed Lycans were. Rise of the Lycans isn't just a prequel, it's the reason everything after it happens. Every fight Selene has, every truce, every betrayal in the entire franchise traces back to Victor's whip and Sonya's execution. If you want to see how this story eventually collides with the original trilogy, let me know in the comments which Underworld film you want recapped next. And if you're new here, hit subscribe. We're breaking down the entire saga, one legend at a time.